Hello and a big warm welcome to you. I really will get this I'm going to move this box over here. So welcome. That looks a little bit more central. Today I want to talk about yelling. So this is another response to one of your requests. And Maddie, you asked about yelling. Now you didn't say whether it was child yelling or adult yelling, but since pretty much it's generally the same cause and the same solution, I'm going to talk about both. So in aware parenting, the way I look at things, and I'm really grateful to Alita for this model, is really when behavior is happening. Should we start with children first? Both. When a behavior is happening with children or adults, is usually one of three reasons. So always looking at these. Is it a need for information? Is it an unmet need that's trying to be met? Or is it pent-up accumulated feelings that are showing up in these ways? So if your child is yelling, it's really not going to be a need for information, probably, unless it's, exuberant. They're playing and they're being exuberant, but yelling, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like it's more like consistently speaking really loudly speaking loudly. So it's really looking at, is it an unmet need? And if it's an unmet need, the need I'm generally thinking of is, are they needing to be heard? Are they experiencing at some level, either in the present moment, that they're not being heard, that they're not getting to choose, that there's something that they really need to be heard about or responded to? Or it could be even a past experience that's showing up, because as we know, past experiences often show up in the present. So is there some past experience where they really didn't get to be heard and it keeps on bubbling up in the present moment? Which also then takes us to the second thing that might be going on is, and often this is the cause of things like yelling, is there's a whole lot of painful feelings that are bubbled up inside. They're holding them all in. And I'm sure you've experienced this before too, and that's why this is the same thing for us as adults. Maybe you've stubbed your toe, and if you're feeling calm and relaxed and your needs are relatively getting met, and you're not holding in loads of feelings, and life's kind of hunky-dory, you might kind of go, oh, ouch, or you might respond to it like that way. But have you ever stabbed your toe and you are boiling, you're holding it all in, and you stub your toe and you might, well, I certainly have anyway, might kind of go, ah! It isn't about the stubbing the toe. The stubbing the toe is the same in both scenarios. The difference was how many feelings were being held right at the surface. So often yelling for us and our children is because a whole load of painful feelings that are being held in, and they're coming out. They're trying to be released in healthy ways, but they're coming out in not so healthy ways, because yelling often doesn't really help anyone. So the same two reasons out of three are the same for us as adults. So if you find that you are yelling, it also could be that you have unmet needs, and also probably a need to be heard, a need for cooperation, a need for support, which again may be very much about the present moment, but it may also be reminding you of experiences when you were little, in particular, when you were asking for something, or you're asking repeatedly and you weren't responded to. So those sweet spots can often come up for us as adults when we are talking to our children and perhaps they're not responding, and we might feel big feelings that, yes, are all about our unmet needs now, to be heard and to be responded to, and for respect and appreciation, all those things, cooperation, but also that may also be very much sweet spots from the past that are coming up to be heard and healed now. So the first thing is really to take a step back. So if there is yelling going on, you may we might have big feelings about it, if it's our child yelling or us. So the most helpful thing, and I'm always going to say the same thing, is somehow having someone, an outer loving crew person, to listen to your feelings about this, because sometimes it can be really hard to be compassionate with your child if they're consistently speaking this really loud voice. And you may have all these thoughts about why they're doing that. You may have all these judgments about them. You may have, it may be happening for a while, and you might be really frustrated and overwhelmed and fed up, and you might be needing some peace and some harmony and some quiet and all of those things. So again, having some place where you can offload all that, so all your feelings get to be expressed. Because remember, there's 3 ways of dealing with feelings, or responding to feelings. We get to express them in healthy ways: expression, repression, aggression. So we get to express them in healthy ways. That's through talking, crying, laughing, raging, sweating, shaking, all of those things. That's expression. Or we repress them through a myriad of a million different ways, or they come out through aggression. So for children, that's hitting, biting, throwing things, blah, blah, blah. For us, it's getting harsh, using power over, getting threatening, all those kinds of things. Shouting's one of them. So yelling kind of fits in this category often. This is the aggression. And actually, if it's feelings that it's coming from, what we're really wanting to do for both of us is to help those feelings come out in healthy ways. But even for us to be able to do that, often we need to express some of our feelings about this. So we can really start to see, to start to see more clearly, because we've released our own feelings about this, so we can think clearly. Okay, so what is going on for my child? Once I'm able to have all my feelings heard, or you might journal about it, you might have your own in a loving crew, listen to you, and there's listening to what might be going on for them. When did this start? I was grateful to Aletha Salter, who I remember going to a workshop of hers when I first got certified as an aware parenting instructor. That was when my daughter was 3. That is 12 and a half years ago now. And I always remember her asking, when someone said, this is what's been happening, she asked, when did it start? And I always find that such a really helpful question to ask, because it often gives us a lot of clues about what the actual cause is. So often that can be a thing like, when did that start? What had just happened? What else was going on? And you might find that gives you some clues to what either the unmet needs might be, or what the feelings that might be about. So when you can think clearly, and it's your child that's yelling, you can think, okay, do they have some unmet needs here, generally to be heard, or do they have some big feelings coming up? And then once you've ascertained what it is, well, then you can do something about it. So if it's an unmet need to be heard, what could you do? You could put extra effort into coming down to their level. If they're not a teenager and taller than you, like my daughter, come down to their level, and when they are talking, do whatever you can to look at them and look them in the eyes and listen and acknowledge and give empathy and I hear you. And when they're making requests, even if you're not able to do that, to hear them. And if you have an inkling about what specifically it might be that they're experiencing not being heard about, to really put a lot of effort into really hearing them. Now, if you've been doing that for a while and the yelling's still happening, and well, another route really would to be going is, so we've met the need, is to go in with the release. So we're going for that, moving the kind of aggression to expression. So what can you do to help your child release the underlying feelings that might be causing that? Well, there's usually 2 ways. One is to help with attachment play. So you might do funny yelling games. You might play a game, depending on the age of your child and playing with them, because definitely not every game works with every child. But if they're a little bit younger, you might play games like, let's pretend we're different animals, and some of the animals could be really quiet like little mice, and some of them could be really loud. And you know, when you're doing the really loud ones, being really there with them and being really loud with them and really enjoying the loudness and seeing if there's any laughter that happens around that, or being the quiet one. If they're a little bit older, you can play a variation of the no puppies on the couch game. So they could be on the couch, my couch is there, or sofa, settee, depending on what country you're in, and you could play a game. Let's play a little game like, okay, so with sound you need to probably block your ears. Okay, I'm going to block my ears, and when I unblock them, whatever you do, you're not going to be making a really loud noise, are you? okay, you're not going to be no, 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 no. So you turn around and go, and when you unplug your ears and look round, they're suddenly making a really loud noise, and you might, no, you said you weren't going to make a loud noise, you're making a loud noise, no, and they might be laughing. And again, you do the same again. Okay, well, I'm going to do it again, but you're really not going to do it this time. You're really not going to. Okay, I really trust you then. And then having that shock, that mock shock, is really helpful. What I love about this game in particular is, particularly if there's anything that you have been kind of reactive to and you haven't always responded in the most compassionate ways, and your child can clearly tell that you don't enjoy that thing, this game is so wonderful because it not only kind of plays with the theme, but it helps them release feelings around you having those kinds of reactions. It also helps us release those feelings through laughter around, we really don't want them to do that thing. So joining in and having connection, having laughter, that can be a really lovely game. So it's really finding what games can you play around yelling. You may be around loud noise, basically, and yeah. So just finding funny ways that you can play with that. So that's one way that they can then release the feelings, through laughter. And the other way is really watching out for opportunities where the feelings are really bubbling up. They're bubbling up, and finding a way to help them have a big cry or a big tantrum. So where you might normally perhaps do a little bit of distraction or kind of go, it's okay, is to really give them the opportunity to have the big rage, and generally the big rage is underlying yelling type things. Hi, Debbie. So yeah, just really going with those opportunities when you're seeing things bubbling, and just reminding yourself, that little reminder, this is going to help them. They let this out rather than me trying to kind of quieten those feelings down. If they get to have a big rage, that is actually going to release the feelings that are causing the yelling, because those feelings, they're coming out here and we're helping them come out in these really healthy ways. We get to rage and cry, and we're there, and I'm right here with you, I'm listening. Oh yeah, I'm hearing you, I really hear you. You're letting out some big feelings. I'm right here with you, sweetheart. And they get to rage and thrash, and depending on what age they are, but just letting it all out, and they may need to use words with it, it's so not fair, you did this and la la la, or you didn't listen to me, or you listened to my sister, or whatever it is. You may find there's something around listening that comes out there. Really seeing that whatever they're sharing, so it's part of their releasing, expressing the feelings that are coming out in the yelling. So that's with children, if it's children yelling. If it's us yelling, it's pretty much the same thing. Looking at, okay, what unmet need do we have here? If it's a need to be heard, is it a present need to be heard? If so, one of the things we can do is to make sure we're actually setting up time with other adults who actually really can hear us. Because yes, it's really enjoyable to have our children to cooperate and listen to us, but it's actually not their job to do that. It's our responsibility to make sure we're heard. So the more we can get that need met from other adults who can meet that need for us, the less likely we're going to have big reactions with our children and yell or speak in loud voices in the ways we don't want to. Another way would be looking at why they're not listening, why they're not cooperating, which is generally, back to those two things again, unmet needs or big feelings. And the other thing is to look at, is this a sweet spot for us? So, when we're asking for something, our child, and maybe they don't hear us, or they don't respond, often that can really connect us with big sweet spots from our past. Often we weren't heard as children. Maybe at school and you repeatedly were trying to be heard, or when you were a baby and you left on your own in your room to cry, or whatever it was. Often those big sweet spots come up to be heard and healed with our children when they're not listening to us. So again, if you have a really, really big reaction and you want to go and yell, it's probably actually that you want to yell at your teacher when you were 12, or your mum and dad when you were 1, or whoever it was, the person that didn't listen to you when you were 5, or and to really, again, give space for those feelings, because they're real feelings. and they really need to be expressed, but to the person they're really directed at, but not actually to the person in real life. Generally, it's really helpful to, again, see if we can get someone to listen to us, and we can say all the things that we would have loved to have said to our teacher, to a person who's listening. So we can, they might say to us, you know, in an empathy buddy, you just get to say all the things that you wanted to say. You know, why you wouldn't listen to me, and I put my hand up so many times, and you kept listening to Susan Smith, and you really didn't hear me, and I'm so frustrated. I just want you to hear me. You get to express it all. So again, it's less likely to come out directed at your child, who it's actually not often, they're not really often the real cause of our responses. And they're actually never the cause, but you know, they can be sometimes it's more here and now, and sometimes it's much more about the past. So yeah, really finding ways to get our needs met, to be heard, and also getting to express our feelings around that whatever they are that are coming out again in yelling. And often it may be rage, and finding someone who will listen to us. And that's why having an empathy buddy where you can regularly listen to each other, you know, they like gold dust, having these kinds of relationships where you regularly get to express all the big feelings that come up as a parent, both because of here and now unmet needs, but also because of past feelings that come up very often, to be heard and healed as a parent. So that's what we can do. Yelling for our children, yelling for us, really looking at, is it an unmet need? Is it accumulated feelings? If it's an unmet need, what can we do to meet the need, really generally to be heard? And what can we do to meet their need to be heard? What can we do to help our needs to be heard, met? And if it's feelings, finding ways for those feelings to be released, either through attachment play and laughter, or through crying and raging. So I hope that was helpful. Come and ask more questions. I'm really enjoying going through them. And thank you, Maddie, for the question. Let me know if it was helpful, if you have anything more you'd like to add. Okay, lots of love. Bye.